Imagine, like, handing someone the absolute exact blueprint to make $1 million.
Right. Just giving it to them.
Exactly. You walk them through it, you mathematically prove to them that the plan works, and then you literally just watch them intentionally set that blueprint on fire the absolute second they feel a little bit of stress.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is. And that is the bizarre, frustrating, and just endlessly fascinating reality of trading psychology. So, welcome to the deep dive. If you have ever stared at a screen, knew exactly what you were supposed to do, and then just did the exact opposite, well, you are in the right place today.
We've all been there.
Definitely. And we need to get the official stuff out of the way first. This is episode 2, named The Hidden Root Behind Most Trading Psychology Problems.
And it really is, the ultimate behavioral puzzle. I mean, we spend years trying to acquire more knowledge, right? Thinking the next book or the next indicator will finally make us disciplined.
Right, like a magic bullet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But knowing what to do is almost never the actual bottleneck.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is to figure out why possessing all the right rules, it just rarely stops you from breaking them in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, the rules go right out the window.
They really do. And we are pulling from some incredibly insightful source material by author Stefan today. We're going to dig into the hidden emotional objectives that quietly just, hijack our decision-making.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. Like, we might think we are trading the market, but more often than not, we are actually just trading our own internal demands. And the core argument here, it completely flips how most people view their mistakes.
Yeah, well, the central thesis is that most of these trading psychology problems don't actually start from a lack of technical knowledge.
Right.
You don't abandon your plan because you suddenly forgot how to read a chart. Or because you just lost the ability to calculate your position size.
Yeah, the math is still there.
Exactly. The math is there. The root cause in almost every single instance is just desperation.
But hold on. I mean, desperation sounds incredibly dramatic.
It does sound intense, yeah.
Like, if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm following a system just trying to make a living, I wouldn't really call myself desperate. Shouldn't I be outcome dependent to some degree? I mean, I'm here to make money, not just to click buttons for the fun of it.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that desperation isn't always visible panic. You aren't necessarily sweating profusely or screaming at your monitor.
Right.
In this context, desperation is a really specific psychological state where you urgently need the market to produce a specific result right now.
Oh, like demanding a payout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take a trade, and instead of it just being a probabilistic event, like one small data point in a series of hundreds, you force that single trade to carry this massive invisible burden.
It has to do all the heavy lifting.
Right. It suddenly has to provide emotional relief, or it has to validate your intelligence, or, it has to prove to your spouse that quitting your day job wasn't a completely terrible mistake.
Wow, okay. So it quietly masquerades as determination then.
Yes, exactly.
It looks like ambition or even caution on the surface, but underneath it all, it's basically a demand. You're no longer responding to the market's data. You are responding to your own internal need for the market to make you feel safe.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because when you are executing a really solid strategy, the result of any individual trade is completely irrelevant.
It's just a drop in the bucket.
Exactly. But when that desperation creeps in, the trade becomes this referendum on your worth. You start trading the P&L, your profit and loss statement, instead of trading the actual price action.
Okay, so if this desperation is operating as a hidden mechanism, how does it actually show up on the screen? Like, give me the tangible symptoms. Because if it's hiding behind this mask of discipline, how are you even supposed to spot it in your own behavior?
Well, we see it in those classic, really destructive behaviors that traders spend their entire careers trying to fix. Let's look at revenge trading, for example.
Oh, the classic.
Right. So beneath the surface, you take a loss, and that loss creates severe psychological discomfort.
It hurts.
It literally hurts. And instead of letting that loss remain a completed historical event, your brain perceives it as an immediate threat. You feel this urgent, burning need to just reverse it immediately.
Right, you want to fix it now.
Exactly. So the very next trade you take isn't evaluated independently based on your mathematical edge. That next trade has basically been assigned a job.
A job it didn't ask for.
Exactly. It must immediately repair the financial and emotional damage of the last 10 minutes.
You're essentially trying to make the market apologize to you.
You are. And the crazy thing is the market doesn't even know you exist.
Right?
Or consider the act of moving a stop loss. I mean, this is incredibly common. In your original plan, when you are calm and logical, you define your risk. You
Hmm.
sit there and say, I mathematically accept losing this specific amount.
In theory.
In theory, yes. But once the market actually approaches that stop loss line on the chart, that theoretical acceptance of risk suddenly becomes a very physical, very painful confrontation with a realized loss.
Wait, so it's like agreeing to touch a hot stove in theory, but when your hand actually gets an inch away, your biological reflexes absolutely scream at you to pull it back. The
Yes.
theory just becomes a very uncomfortable reality.
That's a great way to put it. And your brain interprets that financial loss as a literal threat to your survival.
Wow.
So to alleviate that immense psychological pressure, you just move the stop further away. The desperate need to secure emotional relief from the pain of losing it just becomes infinitely stronger than your intellectual commitment to the original plan.
And I bet we see this exact same root cause in forcing trades during like empty, choppy sessions too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the classic force trade, where you're staring at this sideways, lifeless chart for 2 hours, desperately trying to find a pattern, and suddenly you convince yourself that a totally mediocre setup is the absolute opportunity of the year.
Yeah, because your brain is experiencing a dopamine drought
Yeah.
and inactivity just starts to feel like failure.
Right, you feel like you're wasting time.
Exactly. You didn't sit down at your desk to just observe a flat line, right?
Mm.
You sat down to feel productive, to make money, to achieve something.
Yeah.
So when the market gives you nothing to do, the boredom and that lack of validation just becomes psychologically intolerable. So you manufacture a trade just to feel something.
Wait, so it's like going to the grocery store, but instead of just, walking in and buying milk, you're demanding the cashier validate your recent career choices and tell you you're a genius.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like you're asking the market to do a psychological job it literally isn't designed to do.
That analogy gets right to the heart of it, honestly. Desperation, that subconscious demand for the market to give you an emotional payout, is really just the transmission mechanism.
So what's underneath that?
The deeper root is almost always something sitting far outside the edges of your monitor. Like it's underlying financial pressure, it's a deep-seated fear of failure. Or it's the need to justify your identity as a quote-unquote successful trader.
So the hidden objective is protecting the ego, while the explicit, stated objective is following the trading plan. And when those two objectives conflict, the ego just wins.
Every single time.
It will hijack the trade every time.
Because your ego is tied to your immediate emotional survival. I mean,
Mm.
you can write all the motivational sticky notes about patience and discipline that you want.
Put them all over the monitor.
Right. But if you are desperately trying to prove your self-worth through your daily returns, those sticky notes are totally useless when the pressure actually spikes.
But hold on, this brings up a really thorny problem. Like, if my brain is constantly trying to trick me, to protect my ego and hijack my decisions, how do I actually know if I have a psychological problem or if I just have a terrible trading strategy?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because it feels incredibly convenient to blame my psychology when the math itself might just be fundamentally broken.
And that is the trap that catches thousands of traders. We have to clearly, ruthlessly separate execution from the edge itself.
Okay, how do we do that?
Well, the source material actually provides a brilliant framework for this. If you are following your plan flawlessly, and by that I mean you only take the right setups, you honor every single stop loss, you manage risk exactly as defined, and your results are still consistently deteriorating over a large sample size, then you have a strategy problem.
Ah, okay.
The market regime has shifted, or your data is just flawed.
So in that specific case, the blueprint actually is broken.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you have a historically valid plan and you repeatedly abandon it the very moment you feel discomfort or pressure, well, that is a decision-making problem.
That's the psychology part.
Yes, that is psychology. And confusing those two things creates this toxic, endless loop of strategy hopping.
Oh man, I've definitely seen this loop. A trader starts with a beautifully defined plan, right? They execute cleanly for a couple of weeks. Then, as is totally natural, they hit a probabilistic losing streak, what we call a drawdown.
Which is a mathematical certainty, by the way. Every strategy on Earth has drawdowns.
Right, it's unavoidable. But the first loss is fine, the second loss is annoying. By the third or fourth loss, suddenly the drawdown feels deeply personal.
They take it as an insult.
Exactly. They stop evaluating the market's data and start calculating exactly how much money they need to recover. They force a terrible trade to make it all back. They lose even more. And then here's the kicker. They blame the strategy.
Always the strategy's fault.
Yep. So they throw the whole system out the window. They switch from, say, a momentum strategy where they're chasing big trends to a mean reversion strategy where they're trying to catch tiny bounces.
And the really tragic part is the new strategy actually works for a little while.
Wait, why?
Not because it's a better strategy, but because their confidence has been temporarily restored by the illusion of a fresh start. The psychological pressure is momentarily lifted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but as soon as that new strategy hits its own inevitable losing streak, the pressure returns. And the exact same destructive behaviors reemerge. You just cannot fix a psychological need by changing a mathematical formula.
Right, but here's where it gets really interesting, though. Stefan's text points out a completely counterintuitive fact about all this.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
This desperation, this outcome dependency, it doesn't just happen when you are losing or bleeding money in a drawdown. It actually happens when you are getting incredibly close to a target.
Yes.
Like, winning can trigger the exact same breakdown in discipline.
Yeah, we call it proximity pressure.
Okay, explain that.
Well, when you are far away from a payout or a major performance milestone, each trade feels small. It's just one event in a long series. You are naturally thinking in probabilities because the stakes feel low.
Right, it's just abstract data on a screen at that point.
Exactly. But as that target gets close, say you are one good trade away from passing a major evaluation or, securing a record-breaking month, the neurological meaning assigned to the outcome completely changes.
It gets real.
Very real. The market itself hasn't become more dangerous, but your perception of the trade shifts. It suddenly feels decisive, like it's final.
So you start aggressively protecting the result rather than just executing the process.
Exactly. You start cutting your winning trades way too early because your brain simply cannot tolerate the anxiety of watching that profit shrink, even if the chart says to hold.
You just want to lock it in.
Right. Or you suddenly avoid perfectly qualified, high-probability setups because you are terrified of taking a normal mathematical loss that might push you away from the finish line.
So from the outside, it looks like you're just being cautious.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
But it's caution driven by biological fear, not by your trading process. At that point, you are no longer trading the market. You are trading your burning desire to just cross the finish line.
Okay, so if our biology is this stacked against us and willpower famously crumbles under this kind of emotional activation, what is the actual structural fix here?
Yeah, we need a real fix.
Because just telling someone, hey, stop being desperate and calm down, is genuinely terrible advice. How do we actually build a defense system against our own brains?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the solution is building a structure that does not require you to have, monk-like emotional control at the hardest possible moments.
Because that's impossible.
It is. Willpower is a finite resource. When your amygdala, which is the emotional survival center of your brain, takes over, your logical prefrontal cortex basically shuts down. You cannot rely on willpower in that state.
So what do we do?
You have to rewire the approach from the ground up, starting with a concept called the separation of value.
Separation of value. Okay, so breaking apart the things we've unconsciously tangled together. How do I physically do that?
Well, desperation tries to merge three things together that must remain absolutely separate. Those are the quality of your decision, the financial result of the trade, and your personal value as a human being.
Okay, I really want to highlight that. The quality of the decision, the financial result, and your personal value.
Right, because a brilliant, statistically perfect decision can lose money. And a terrible, impulsive decision can make money. And neither of those financial results defines your worth.
That's a huge distinction.
It is.
Yeah.
And if you don't actively separate those three things in your mind, the market will train you to do the wrong things. You will take a horrendous impulsive gamble, get lucky, and make a profit. And your brain will release dopamine, reinforcing that totally destructive behavior for the future.
So how do we actually intercept this before the dopamine hits? What are the actual structural checks we can implement, like today?
It starts before you even open your charting software. It's called the pre-session question.
Okay, I like that. What is it?
You have to sit down, away from the screens, and honestly ask yourself, What do I need from the market today?
Oh, note the phrasing there, not what I want to happen, what I need to happen.
Yes, the distinction is vital because if your internal honest answer is, I need to recover yesterday's brutal loss, or I need to prove to myself that this strategy actually works, or even just, I desperately need to avoid a red day,
Mm,
your session is already compromised.
you've already lost.
Basically, your brain is already in survival mode. You have assigned the market an emotional obligation before the opening bell even rings.
Right.
But by verbalizing this question, you engage your prefrontal cortex, you
Yeah.
bring logic back online,
Yeah.
and you realize that the only acceptable answer to that question is, I need absolutely nothing from this session other than the opportunity to execute my process correctly.
And if you ask yourself that question and you realize your brain is just screaming for validation, maybe the absolute best execution for that day is just keeping your software closed.
Exactly.
Like, not trading at all is a highly valid, highly profitable form of execution.
Protecting your capital from your own mindset is execution.
I love that.
And the second structural check is calibrating your risk. Most traders look at their balance and ask, how much can my account mathematically afford to lose on this trade?
Right, standard risk management.
But the vastly superior question is, how much risk can I absorb without changing the way I make decisions?
Oh, because it's not about the math on a spreadsheet, it's about how that math affects your physiology.
Precisely.
I always think of it like trying to play a delicate, highly strategic game of chess, but you're forced to hold your breath the entire time.
Oh, that's good.
Right. The lack of oxygen, or in this case, the lack of psychological capital, it just forces you to make rushed, fatal, panicky moves just to survive the next 10 seconds.
That is a perfect analogy because if a 2% risk per trade makes your heart race and makes you stare at the 1-minute chart in a cold sweat and makes you aggressively move your stops, then 2% is just too high for your current psychological capacity.
Doesn't matter what the spreadsheet says.
Exactly. Position size is a privilege that should be earned through stable, boring execution, not granted simply because you have high ambition.
And speaking of the nervous system, there's this concept in the source material called one nervous system that really challenges a common habit.
Oh yeah, this is a big one.
Because a lot of traders will take a devastating loss on their main account, get incredibly frustrated, and then immediately log into a different sub-account or a funded challenge to keep trading. They think, okay, fresh account, fresh start, clean slate.
It is a complete illusion.
I'll believe.
You are one biological organism with one nervous system. Switching accounts just preserves the revenge trading cycle under a different login credential.
Right, the stress just follows you.
A loss on account A is still part of your total cognitive load for the day. You carry that activated, frustrated, cortisol-soaked emotional state right into account B.
So you have to treat it all as one big bucket.
Yes, you have to treat all your market exposure as one aggregate risk system. Your brain doesn't compartmentalize the stress just because the account number changed.
Which brings up what might be the most practical, sobering life advice in this entire deep dive, and that's financial structure.
Absolutely foundational.
Like, if you are sitting down to trade and you absolutely need this week's profits to pay your rent or buy groceries on Friday, you are creating an unbearable, localized pressure that will absolutely destroy your logic.
It is the ultimate, most destructive form of outcome dependency. When your literal physical survival, your shelter, your food, depends on short-term performance in a purely probabilistic environment, every normal statistical loss feels like a physical attack.
Because it kind of is.
Right. You cannot think in probabilities when you are worried about eviction.
You are demanding that this ocean of chaotic data somehow organize itself to pay out on your personal monthly schedule.
Yeah.
And let's be real, the market does not care about your rent. It never signed a contract with your landlord.
No, it didn't. This is exactly why having a strong financial buffer, like cash savings,
Yeah.
a separate stable income, low living expenses, it's not just generic life advice. It is a literal trading edge.
It's part of the strategy.
It has to be. Your financial structure in the real world has to be robust enough to survive the natural variance and drawdowns of your trading process. If it can't, your need for immediate income will inevitably destroy your capacity for disciplined execution.
So what does this all mean for you? We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the invisible symptoms of outcome dependency to the actual structural safety nets we can build to protect our prefrontal cortex.
It's a lot to process.
It is. So before you go to your next session, let's lock this in with a structured review of the core variables we've unpacked today.
Let's consolidate this. First, the effect. What is the visible behavior, the decision, or the outcome we examine today?
It is a sudden, irrational abandonment of a perfectly valid trading plan, which manifests as revenge trading, moving stop losses, forcing setups out of boredom, or cutting winners early out of fear.
Exactly. Then, the cause. What is the mechanism contributing to that effect? Well, it isn't a lack of technical knowledge. The mechanism is desperation.
Right. It is the internal outcome-dependent demand that the market must produce a specific result right now to satisfy a pressing financial or emotional need.
Which brings us to the mirror. What does this behavior reveal about you, the decision maker?
It reveals that you are actively attaching your personal worth, your identity, or your immediate need for control to a purely mathematical, probabilistic event. You are essentially asking the market to heal you.
Right. Now, the responsibility. What remains within your influence?
You have to radically acknowledge that the market cannot permanently prove your worth, and it absolutely cannot rescue you from your life choices. It is entirely your responsibility to structure your risk and your personal finances so that you are not utterly reliant on short-term random outcomes.
Spot on. And finally, the practice.
Hmm.
What specific response could be trained starting tomorrow?
It is implementing that crucial pre-session check, stopping to ask, what do I need from the market today? And then rigorously measuring the quality of your decision-making process entirely separated from the financial outcome of the trade itself.
And to help you actually integrate this into your workflow, we aren't just going to give you platitudes.
No, we have some precise journal questions tailored to this subject.
Yes. And don't just think about these in passing. Actually write them down and demand an honest answer from yourself.
Grab a pen.
Number 1. What specific psychological or emotional function am I currently asking my trading account to perform for me? Am I subconsciously asking it for validation, for a sense of control, or maybe for relief from my daily life?
Be brutally, uncomfortably honest with that one. And the second question.
Number 2. When I look at my absolute most recent rule violation, like the last time I broke my plan, what deeper underlying discomfort was I trying to avoid in that exact split-second moment?
Because it's never just about the money.
Never.
It's about what the money represents to your ego in that specific moment.
And if you can isolate the true psychological cause, the visible effect often just corrects itself.
Which brings us to the end of our time today. We started by talking about the messy, murky waters of our own psychology and the painful realization that a perfect blueprint is entirely useless if the architect is in a state of panic.
It really is.
So, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something to keep working in the back of your mind before you take your next position. If the market suddenly lost its ability to make you feel successful, and it lost its ability to make you feel inadequate if it could only offer you neutral, cold mathematical data, how would your very next decision change?